Okay, so let's look at the next bit now. Next, let's say we wanted to find the intersection point on our calculator. So if it was a super ugly, messy equation and we didn't want to solve it by hand, or we just wanted to check ourselves and make sure that we were correct, what we could do is we could graph both equations. So in order to do that, turn your calculator on and then hit the y equals button right there. And then on the screen of your calculator, you get a bunch of things like y1 equals, y2 equals, dot, 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 all the way down to like y10 or something. So we want to graph both of our equations. So the first one we want to graph is our 2x minus 2. And so we're literally going to type in 2, we're going to hit the x button, which is right there, and then we're going to subtract 2 again. So that's our first equation. And now we need to enter the second one. The second one's a little more complicated because it's with fractions, but we will just be careful how we enter it. When dealing with fractions on your calculator, it's always better to be a little more cautious and use them even when you maybe don't need to, because your calculator is super, super, super very particular with how you enter things. And if you get a wrong parenthesis in a wrong spot or don't have a parenthesis when you need one, you will often get incorrect answers. So what I would advise you to do to enter this would be to enter, first off, I want you to do a parenthesis. So open up a parenthesis. And then you need to do the negative, which is this button down here. Don't do a minus. If you do a minus, again, you'll get an error. You have to use the negative sign, which is right there at the bottom. So negative, and then type 1 half, so do divided by 2, and then close your parenthesis, and then hit your X button, and then do plus, and again, let's just be cautious and put a parenthesis there, and do 11 halves, and then put a final parenthesis there. So 11 divided by 2, and then close off that parenthesis. So we've got the two equations entered, and now we want to graph it. But before we do that, let's get a standard window, which gives you 10 by 10 by 10 by 10. And often that's a good place to start. You might need to adjust it from there. But to get a standard window, hit zoom. A bunch of different options will come up. You want option 6. Zoom 6 is zoom standard. So hit that and it will graph your function. So when you graph that on a standard window, you're going to get something that looks like this. And if you use a standard window and you can't see what you need to see, then hit the window button there and you can manually define the x minimum, x maximum, y minimum, y maximum, all that fun stuff. But the whole point of this was to find that intersection point right smack dab in the middle there. And to do that on your calculator, you need to get this option up here that is calculate, C-A-C, whoa, can't spell, C-A-L-C. It is the same button as the trace button, but first you need to hit second. So notice that it is in yellow up here, or maybe it's in blue on your calculator, but you need to hit second first. Oh, that's funny, second first, to operate those yellow thingies. So hit second, and then hit the trace button. That gives you your calculate screen, and then you have a bunch of different options. We want to choose option 5, which is intersect, because we want to find this intersecting point. You can't spell. So choose 5. It will then take you back to your graph, and it will look like nothing has happened. But on the bottom, it will say first curve with a question mark. It's telling you to tell it what two graphs you want to find the intersection point to. So you'll notice there'll be a little cursor on your graph. It'll probably be right there. And you can jump between graphs using the up and down arrow. So if you hit up, it will jump you up to that graph. If you hit down, it'll jump you back down to that graph. But if you only have two functions entered, if you hit enter and then it asks you for your second graph, it automatically changes to the other one. Because you can't find an intersection point with, just one line. So go ahead and jump between the graphs either manually, or let it do it for you if you only have two entered. And so hit enter when it says first curve, hit enter when it says second curve, and then it says guess. It just wants you to use the left or right arrows to move those cursors closer to the actual intersection point. But if you're just graphing two linear functions, it doesn't matter because there's only one intersection point. So then hit enter after it asks you to guess. It will think for a second, and then it'll quickly tell you x equals 3 and y equals 4. And again, this is corresponding to the ordered pair 3, 4. It's telling you those are the coordinates of that point. So that can be a super useful way to use your calculator to solve system of equations.